I'm Paul Edwards. I'm the author of the independently published Mourner's Woods books, and I'm first and foremost a monster kid. Today I'm reading Quasimodo's Monster Magazine, issue number 3 from 1975. And I thought some of you might enjoy looking through this vintage monster magazine with me. Just in case you don't own your own copy of Quasimodo's Monster Magazine, issue number 3 from 1975. And together we can see what kind of vintage monster goodness is in here. Quasimodo's Monster Magazine, issue 3 is ready for us. Cover price, $1.25. That's fairly steep for 1975. Let's see if we're getting our money's worth. Our 1970s money's worth. Notice that not everything here is strictly monsters. This is about the disaster film Earthquake. So let's see what we got. We got a vampire being killed on the cover. That's a good start. Oh, and right away we start with the wild ads. Free brochure about karate and other martial arts. Nice. Okay, so in this issue we're going to get Quasimodo's mailbag, a look at Phase 4, Vincent Price, always good, Lugosi, mini monster posters, Christopher Lee, I don't want to make horror films anymore. Okay, I got to admit, they've got me intrigued. And what's Flash Gordon doing in a monster magazine? There were plenty of monsters in Flash Gordon. That's not out of place. But that's all right. Let's get going. Remember in Flash Gordon when Flash had to wrestle that, I think it was called an orangapod. It was some sort of a simian monster in the arena, in Emperor Ming's arena. Nice. Yeah, you never want super intelligent ants. That's probably not a good thing. There's a printing problem here. Look. It went right off the edge of the road there. That's not so good. You can get a poster of Lon Chaney Sr. as the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo. Of course, even back when this magazine was printed, that movie was already in the public domain, so anybody can circulate the images of it. So it wouldn't really cost them anything to run off that poster. Anything except the ink and paper. You can tell. See, this should be parallel. See this? This is kind of schlocky. A second look at Vincent Price. Does anyone remember when Vincent Price was going through a whole bunch of disguises and this was one of them when he was a hairdresser? This was in Theater of Blood, if I remember right, which was very much like his Dr. Phibes movies, except that he could speak normally. But it was the same idea as the two Dr. Phibes movies. Nightmare Theater. Nice. This was a set of made-for-TV horror movies. They used to make movies specifically to be shown on broadcast television, especially in the 70s, but also in the 60s. But the 70s were a big time for made-for-TV horror movies. Some of them were really good and could have been theatrical productions, I'm thinking especially of Trilogy of Terror and Dark Night of the Scarecrow. Some of them were okay, but could have still been theatrical productions, like Kingdom of the Spiders. Nice. There was a made-for-TV witch movie from about 1980 that it took me forever to track down. I remembered it from my childhood, but I couldn't remember the name of it, and it was aggravating the heck out of me. It was about a high school where there were two witches, a good witch and an evil witch, and the evil witch kept picking on the good one until finally it was time for a final showdown. I remembered the movie clear as a bell. I couldn't think of the name of it for the life of me. So if you're in that position, I'll save you the effort. Midnight Offerings. Midnight Offerings. Not Burnt Offerings. Midnight Offerings is the name of that witch movie. Night of the Sorcerers. Yikes. Here are also Rand's Murder Mansion. You might recognize some of these. Horror Rises from the Tomb, The Fury of the Wolfman, Dear Dead Delilah, Witch's Mountain, Hatchet for a Honeymoon, Death Smiles on a Murderer, A Bell from Hell, The Mummy. I'm not sure which mummy they mean, but I will tell you that Horror Rises from the Tomb is a Paul Naschy movie, and The Fury of the Wolfman is a Paul Naschy movie, and that's from his flagship movie series, the Hombre Lobo movies, where he played a werewolf named Valdemar Daninsky. Hatchet for the Honeymoon is really good. If I remember right, that's a Mario Bava film. It's a psycho killer movie told from the psycho killer's point of view. Lugosi, The Man and the Vampire. Now, if you're watching a video like this in the first place, I'm sure you know that Bela Lugosi famously played Count Dracula in a long-running play of Dracula, and then in the 1931 feature film. But not everyone realizes he also played other vampires. He played a vampire in Mark of the Vampire, but not Dracula. And he played a third vampire in Return of the Vampire, Count Armand Tesla. He also played Igor in Son of Frankenstein and Ghost of Frankenstein. Dracula certainly is his most famous role, but a lot of people think Igor is his best performance that he ever gave on screen. Anytime this comes up, though, I have to mention that I really like Lugosi's performance as Murder LaGrange in White Zombie. This should look familiar to you if you've ever been to a Rob Zombie concert. I have. This is the robot monster from The Phantom Creeps, which was a movie serial, and they've condensed the chapters of the movie serial into a film that's about 90 minutes, which is on my All Night Spook Show podcast. You can check out the movie version of The Phantom Creeps on there. It is in the public domain, which is why Rob Zombie doesn't have to pay to use that image, which might be why he uses it a whole lot. Shandu, about the magician. Nice. Now remember, this is 1975. Kids had limited access to information about horror films. If you wanted to know tonight, what movies did Bela Lugosi star in? You could just Google it or look him up on Wikipedia or something. You couldn't do that in the old days. you would have to hope against hope that some publication, like one of your favorite monster magazines, would print a list of all of his movies. And believe me, you would hang on to this list for dear life. And each week you would look through your television listings that were listed in the Sunday newspaper to see if any of these films was going to be played during the coming week. I won't subject you to this, but at some point I should sit down and go through and see if I've seen every single one of these. I probably have not. I've seen a whole bunch of them, but Lugosi made so many Poverty Row films that it's hard to have seen them all. I can find one that I didn't see. I'll tell you right now, I didn't see Genius at Work. But I have seen almost all of these. Have you? What lesser-known Lugosi performance is your favorite? We all like Dracula. We all like Igor. What lesser-known Bela Lugosi performance do you think was the best? Let me know about it in the comments. Again, in the 70s, you couldn't just print out pictures of your favorite monsters. You had to cut them out of a magazine or newspaper if there was an article on them. Gog was a science fiction movie from 1959 about a super scientific base where a series of deadly sabotages are taking place using creative and scientific kills. Colossus of New York is sort of like a robotic version of the Frankenstein monster. The scientist's brain gets put into the robot body, but without human things like our sensory input, our sense of touch and sight and hearing. The brain becomes distorted in its thoughts and becomes sociopathic. Trog. Joan Crawford. When Joan Crawford made the movie Trog, I'm sure she was thinking to herself, but I used to be the Queen of Hollywood. The Queen of Hollywood. I had my choice of roles. And now she was reduced to this caveman film. If you've ever watched Trog and thought, you know, the movie is not great, but the caveman mask is actually pretty convincing, that's because it was a leftover mask from 2001: A Space Odyssey. So they didn't create the Trog mask themselves. It was a hand-me-down. The Great Ghoul of Great Britain, Christopher Lee. I've made my last horror film. And in fact, if you noticed on the cover, it said, Christopher Lee says, I don't want to make horror films anymore. Well, your first reaction to that might be, what, is he against horror all of a sudden? But that's not really what it was. He had no problem with horror. He made tons of horror films. But this is a common thing with actors. People become actors because they want to play different roles. They want to play different parts, not just the same part over and over and over ad infinitum. So he had done plenty of horror movies, the Hammer Draculas, plenty of other horror films as well. And it's no surprise that by 1975, he was saying that he wanted to do something else. And he did get his wish. Just for reference, he was in the Lord of the Rings movies, and he was in the Star Wars movies, the Star Wars prequels. There he is. Here he is in Dracula, Prince of Darkness. He didn't have a single line of dialogue in that film. Oh, look, they did it to us again with the chopping off of the printing. That's not so good. Yep, and it's coming right up to the edge here. Well, the important thing is that they not chop off any of the pictures. There he is, putting the bite on Caroline Munro. Don't feel too bad for her. She wound up being a Bond girl a few years after this. She was in The Spy Who Loved Me. That's a good shot of Christopher Lee's Dracula. Remember this one? When they killed Dracula because he couldn't go through the running water. Nice. When Christopher Lee's Dracula was going into kill mode, they would have him wear these bloodshot red contact lenses, which bothered the heck out of his eyes, but did make for a cool effect. The monster explosion. Oh, yeah. Remember now, 1975. Yep, this is the second wave of monster kids. And the monster movies were all over TV. It took me a minute to get this. This is from Frankenstein the Monster from Hell. Mr. Spock. Mr. Spock is not a monster, but Star Trek had its fair share of monsters. Horror comes to Broadway in The Magic Show. I went to this as a kid. My parents took me to this as a kid, which probably explains a lot. This was a play where an older magician is jealous of an up-and-coming young magician who's the good magician and plots to destroy him. And they have a sort of a magic war between the two of them. Oh, now we get monster comics. Yeah. I know that it isn't, but doesn't this remind you a little bit of Dr. Zaius from Planet of the Apes? Just a little. That's 70s hairstyling for you. Wow. Look at that panel. Oh, get a monster crossword puzzle. What's Flash Gordon doing in Monster Magazine? Now it's just Monster Magazine. It's Quasimodo's Monster Magazine. Get it right. There's Ming the Merciless. You know, I'll say one thing about the 1980 Flash Gordon movie. They did an amazing job of casting actors who look like the original actors from 1938 through 1940. Really, really astounding. Now, wouldn't you think that they would have shown us some of the Flash Gordon monsters? Where's the giant lizards? Where's that that sea monster that he had to fight? All right. 2 new monster books. Are they Warner's Woods books? Oh, no, probably not. Not yet. Okay, Earthquake. Well, disaster movies were big in the 1970s, the first half of the 1970s. There were airplane disaster movies, there was The Towering Inferno, and there was this film, Earthquake. Charlton Heston starred in this one, and it's delivered what it promises, as you can see from the devastated city of Los Angeles. So, a disaster movie like this is sort of an epic adventure and action movie. Not really a horror story, though, and certainly not a monster story. But I think that there's probably a crossover of audiences. The people who like monster movies would also like this. And it was pretty good, I gotta say. If you ever notice that there are 2 different versions of Earthquake with different lengths, that's because they actually filmed extra scenes to add to the movie when they showed it on television so that they could stretch it over the course of 2 nights. So instead of cutting stuff out, they added stuff in. Yep. Charlton Heston, hanging on for dear life. Whoa. Check this out. I wish Dr. Frankenstein didn't get all his parts from members of the Transylvania nudist camp. Oh, man. Oh, man. Really? Oh, here's the solution to our crossword puzzle. Coming next issue, Space 1999. I've just recently been rewatching that. The Making of the Exorcist, which was only a couple years old at this point. Monster masks, monster books, monster photos, and just plain monsters. I had these, the rubber Batman and Spider-Man. Wow. Pretty creepy. This is Caesar from Planet of the Apes. Nice. Oh, movie posters. I have this poster. If you see any of my videos that are filmed up in my office, those are usually the ones where I do like the movie reviews, those videos. You'll see that I have a framed copy of this poster up. Nice. Oh yeah, the Mego action figures. You get the superheroes, the supervillains, and of course, the Planet of the Apes. The pirates, of course. Oh, here's the Mad Monsters Castle. So you can get your action figures of different characters. Here, let's say you got the monsters. You got to have them play somewhere, right? Here you go. Your own monster castle. Nice. So what should we send away for? Oh my gosh. Let's take a moment to check these out, because there were some far out ads in these. Nice. Oh, more karate. Ooh, I want the monster ghost. The monster ghost. Wow. That's pretty horrifying. Nice. Joy buzzer. Yeah. You can get a guy once with that. He's never going to shake your hand again, though. No, I'd go with the monster ghost. For sure. And on the back cover, Universal Bodybuilding. Free! Wow. And you check off the results that you'd like. Why not just check them all off? So there you have it. That's 1975 in a nutshell. I was there. I witnessed it firsthand. This is pretty much on the money for 1975. Especially the guy with the Dr. Zaius hair. Hey, listen. Thanks for spending some time going through Quasimodo's Monster Magazine, issue number 3 with me. If you enjoy vintage horror and classic monsters, check out my books. They're available on Amazon.com. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books, chock full of monsters. You'll love them. Until then, thanks for spending some time going through this great old magazine with me, and I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.